The PPP has been so far paraded around like a huge bailout for small businesses everywhere. But truly, who is the PPP really helping? All right, so today we're going to be talking about the PPP. So what is the PPP? Well, the PPP is a Paycheck Protection Program Loan. Now, the purpose of this program, according to the Small Business Association, or SBA, is to provide a direct incentive for small businesses to keep their workers on the payroll. Now, I'll repeat that. It's an incentive for small businesses to keep their workers on the payroll. It's not made for businesses just to stay open. It's not made to pay off past due debts. And it's not made to help pay for the medical bill that you got because of COVID. It's made to pay for payroll. Now, I'm not saying that part of it can be used to pay for other items other than payroll, but the payroll part is the main chunk of it, 75% to be exact. Now, the lure about the PPP loan that everyone is hung up on is that a portion, if not all of it, can be forgiven, meaning you don't have to pay it back. What? Not have to pay it back? Chris, you gotta be kidding me, right? There's gotta be a catch, right? Well, maybe. I mean, is it a catch if even the people giving out the loan aren't even sure there's a catch? Well, that brings us to the purpose of this video. Is the PPP a scam? So what is a scam? Well, according to Webster Dictionary, a scam or to scam is to deceive and defraud. So back to the title of the video, is the PPP here as a way to deceive or defraud the American people? Well, it depends on how you look at it. The PPP has been so far paraded around like a huge bailout for small businesses everywhere. Finally, the government gets us and is bailing us small businesses instead of big banks. Thank God, right? But truly, who is the PPP really helping? Now, as a business owner, I was taught the number one reason why you go into business is to make a profit, unless you're a nonprofit, and that's another video. Now, we can go with the presumption that since the PPP is keeping our staff in somewhat holding pattern till our customers come back, that in the end, PPP is a good thing. It eventually leads to make a profit, right? Well, let's actually try to play this out. Let's say you're a retail restaurant business. You're either closed or significantly slower. You get a PPP loan to pay your workers, and for the next 8 weeks, after receiving the loan, you're paying them a salary. But what is happening in these next 8 weeks? So you're not open, so you're not receiving any revenue. You decide to keep the workers maybe around the sweep floors. The landlord gets wind you're open, so they're charging you rent and utilities. If you're a restaurant, you got food that has a shelf life, so you're either throwing it out or having to buy more to restock in hopes that you'll get a steady stream of customers. And everything seems manageable until you hit that 8-week marker. The PPP has now been exhausted because you were forced to spend it within 8 weeks, and the bills you had at the beginning of the pandemic are still there. So what exactly did you accomplish? And what did the PPP accomplish? Now, the optimist in me would say, well, the PPP helped to keep my doors open and pay employees, but did you really gain anything as a business? A business that is built to pay you and your investors and your family? If you ask me, the only thing you've accomplished with the PPP is you pay workers instead of the state paying them, and you paid your landlord and maybe some extra vendors. And now you've amassed a loan that you're hoping that's going to be forgiven, but you won't even know until 60 days after you applied for forgiveness. To make matters worse, you may have taken on even more debt from other loans because you have other expenses that weren't payroll. So if you ask me, you've actually created yourself an even worse situation than the one you began with. So the idea that the PPP is a big save from the government is just a really hard pill to swallow. Now, what did happen with the PPP is you saved the unemployment office from having to pay your employees because you decided to pay them instead. And you're now on a hook for a loan that, if not fully forgiven, have only about a year to pay back. Even at a 1% rate, a $30,000 PPP loan will mean a $2,500 monthly payment. I mean, after all this, are you ready to take on an additional loan payment? And get this, lenders are now putting in their terms of agreement that if you default, they have the ability to demand full payment immediately or even sue you. And if you knowingly use these funds other than the eligible expenses, you can be subject to criminal charges. With so much need right now in the world, I'm afraid the temptation to use these funds to cover other personal items might be too difficult to pass up. Now, I'm not saying that the PPP is all bad. It's a resource, it's an option. With everything that's going on in our economy, we need options, but you need to be smart about it. When I applied for the PPP loan, it took them 1 day to get me approved. The money is just pouring out to people applying, but the details have not fully been fleshed out. My concern is businesses are desperate and they're going to be grabbing at any possible hope that they can see. So to help some of you navigate through the usage of your PPP loan, if and when you decide to use it, I'd like to give you guys some items to think about. 1, was your business doing well even before the pandemic? If you were struggling even before COVID-19, you're probably going to be struggling even more after the lockdown is lifted. I'm sorry, but most likely it's going to take a while to get back up to speed, and you're going to have to deal with more months of slow business. So is adding another loan that is due in a year or two the right decision? 2, how is your record keeping, and can you maintain the 75% obligation for payroll for the duration of the loan? The SBA has provided some guidelines on what they deem is acceptable documentation, but as someone who does taxes, I know a good majority of small business owners are not the greatest at keeping their books neat and organized. This is going to be crucial in order for lenders to forgive your loans. My suggestion is to develop a strong relationship with your lender and continue to check on them throughout the next week or so to ensure you're on track for forgiveness. The PPP loan is constantly changing and there may be some new guidance you may be missing. 3, be ready to make at least 2 monthly payments on your loan. The banks have 60 days to decide whether or not to forgive your loans, which is a request you won't make until the end of the 8-week period. With the amount of requests of forgiveness probably coming in during that time, I'm sure it'll be a while before you get an answer from the banks on your forgiveness. Number 4, consider opening up a separate bank account for the PPP loan you've received. Because the loan has very strict guidelines on how it's supposed to be spent, it's easier to organize and tag expenses when it's not mixed in with other operating expenses. At least when you pull money from the PPP account, you're consciously aware of what you're spending this particular dollar amount for. Number 5, talk to an accountant or at least get a second opinion on a PPP agreement. There are many articles, resources, videos, you name it, on the PPP, so it's important to be as informed as possible. You don't want to be in a position where you thought you were good on one thing, and when it comes down to apply for forgiveness, you find out a particular expense isn't allowed. Now, I want to close this video in saying that I'm glad that the government is doing something to help with the economy. What I don't appreciate is the government providing assistance in a way that is not transparent and leaves the American people with so many potential pitfalls. This type of lack of transparency is what caused the subprime mortgage crisis back in 2008 with their just sign here and things will be fine attitude. I hope this video has been informative and helpful, but please don't take my word for it. Do your due diligence and read up on your terms. Talk with your lender and ask, what do you need to do exactly in order to get forgiveness? If they don't know, that's a huge red flag. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. I'll be pumping out new videos every week that are focused around money, health, and wellness. Thank you. Bye.